Guidelines for the Prevention, Control and Mitigation of the Spread of Coronavirus Disease 2019 in Higher Education Institutions. Commission on Higher Education COVID Advisory Number 7. The 24th of May 2020. On HEI's operations and work arrangements. In areas under ECQ, MECQ, and GCQ, HEIs are advised to observe the following guidelines.
Suspension of face-to-face or in-person classes until further directives from the IETF or issuance by the proper government authority that the province or city will be under MGCQ. For HEIs which intend to offer summer classes, midterm, and/or mid-year intersession shall only be for the following students: graduating students who need to complete their academic requirements, students whose subjects are scheduled in the summer under the PSG of their degree program, and students taking graduate studies. Only HEIs with capability for full online learning will be allowed to conduct summer classes.
OJT and internship programs for and in local remain suspended until ECQ, MECQ, GCQ, and NGCQ has been lifted. However, for HEI and NGCQ areas, in-campus OJT and internship programs can be authorized provided there is strict compliance with physical distancing and other health protocols.
The opening of classes for 2020 to 2021 shall be based on the HEI's delivery mode subject to compliance with minimum health standards and the situation on the ground. HEIs using full online education can open any time after May 31, 2020. HEIs using flexible learning can open any time in August 2020. HEIs using significant face-to-face or in-person mode can open no earlier than the 1st of September 2020. All HEIs who are using the old academic calendar, June to May, are encouraged to change their academic year and open in August 2020 or later in the year.
HEIs should prepare for the opening of 2020 to 2021 by undertaking the following: preparation of the HEI facilities to comply with minimum health standards such as mandatory wearing of masks, hand washing and sanitation practices, safe physical distancing, reconfiguration of classroom spaces, provision of markers in public places, prohibition of mass gathering, among others.
Consultation with local health officials and local government units to determine the health situation in the locality, availability of public transportation, and other support services necessary for the operation of HEI, preparation of a contingency or continuity plan as to the precautionary and other health protocols in case there are suspected or confirmed cases, adoption of a flexible learning strategy or mode in delivering instruction by ensuring appropriate facility delivery system, faculty complement, and student support.
In coordination with local health officials and the local government unit, implementation of any of the following flexible enrollment procedures: online enrollment and payment through remittance services, scheduling of students who will be allowed to enroll on any given day, opening of satellite enrollment sites as practicable, other similar arrangements to limit the number of students allowed at any given time and ensure safe physical distance.
Mass gatherings are prohibited. HEIs are prevented from conducting in-person graduation ceremonies and other school activities until the prohibition for mass gathering is lifted. Private HEIs are advised to follow the guidelines of government agencies such as the Department of Labor and Employment as regards to the deployment of its faculty and its staff.
As we face challenging scenario in the new normal, we cannot lay aside other issues that affect the educational system in this unprecedented change. Considering the current situation, the Commission on Higher Education Regional Office 9 assures the guidance given to the HEIs. Thus, the conduct of this orientation on CHED document submission, flexible learning system, and higher education module writing and design. Before we formally start, may I call in Mr. Vicente A. Regalado, Education Program Specialist 2, for the webinar guidelines, to be followed by a universal prayer through audio-visual presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. Before we will proceed with our program proper, allow me to share to you the do's and don'ts of our video conferencing. Dress well, at least from the waist up, and treat your appearance the same way you would as if you were in meeting in person. Mute your microphone whenever you are not speaking. This is especially important in group conferences when multiple users, background noises can become extremely distracting. Make sure your camera quality is acceptable and that it is always pointing in the right direction. Test your camera before the meeting to make sure your head is not cut off, etc. Pro tips: always test beforehand. Test video, audio, and your internet connection at least 10 minutes before your call. Gear up. Get the right gear for your conference room or personal office to ensure quality. Treat it like it's in person. Dress like you were meeting in person to avoid looking unprofessional. And lastly, clean up. Read your background of distractions or hide them behind a green screen. Other things to consider during Zoom VidCon. For a smooth Zoom VidCon, please consider the following. During the presentation of the speakers, questions will not be entertained. Questions will be raised through the open forum. If you have questions during or after the presentation, you may send them through the chat box, which will be read by the moderator. Please provide your name before your question. Should there be questions to be raised verbally, this will be answered after all questions in the chat box has been entertained. You may use the chat box and inform the host that you wish to speak. Once recognized, you may press unmute and speak. As our Zoom VidCon is live through Facebook and YouTube, we will also entertaining questions through these platforms.
Dakilang may likha sa kalingat pang-unawa, mangyari ang iyong diwa sa langit at sa lupa.
اللهم إنك ترى أن هذه القلوب قد اجتمعت على محبتك واتقت على هذه المكان إيمانك وتوحدت على دعوتك فوسك ربيطاتها يا الله وأدم أدها واملأها بنورك الذي لا يخبو واسرح صدورنا بفائد الإيمان بك وجميل توكل عليك واهدنا سبل الوحدة والسلام والصلاح ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار يا الله أنت مستجاب لهذا الدعاء وعليك توكلنا وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين آمين الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Our loving Father, Creator of heaven and earth, we thank you for your generosity and kindness, and ask that you hear us in times of needs. Make us worthy of your blessing, and keep us from further want. Help us restore our abundance here on earth, so that we may turn more attention to your divine kingdom. Help us become a blessing to our family and others, to glorify and honor your name. We ask this to our Lord Jesus Christ, your Son, who lives and reigns with you in the unity of the Holy Spirit, one God, forever and ever. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Iadya niyo kami sa pagmamataas upang maiwaksi ang lupit at dahas. At samahang lumikha ng pamayanang payapa sa kalikasan, kabuhayan, kakanyahan, paniniwala.
To acknowledge the participants on this webinar, may I call in Engineer Joseph Luz Santa Teresa, Education Supervisor to Commission on Higher Education Regional Office 9.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is my privilege to acknowledge all of the participants today. So we are very happy that we have a full house. Our room is actually full, and don't worry, but we are still live at Facebook and YouTube. So I'd like to acknowledge all of the higher education institutions in Region 9. And we have also special participations from higher education institutions in the Basulta region and also in ARM. So currently we are full at 100 participants, and we're still live via Facebook and YouTube. Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone.
Again, this webinar is actually live, being broadcasted in the Facebook page, official page of the Commission on Higher Education 9, and also in YouTube. To welcome us and give the rationale of this webinar, I would like to give the virtual floor to the ever-able, dynamic, and a game-changer OIC Director of CHED Region 9, Dr. Roddy P. Garcia.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. And I would like to thank the people behind this seminar, the MIS unit and planning unit of this commission. Thank you so much for being there always to facilitate webinars sponsored by the Commission on Higher Education. This afternoon, we also invited two professional in the fields of specialization. Of course, we invited Dr. Jocelyn Cantina of the JRMSU and Dr. Era Aranal to present to us models in terms of the content-based modules that we are requiring from our higher education institutions. We will be having also the launching of our online submission of documents and the flexible assessment system. So there are two things that we expect from our listeners, our participants, our viewers to take away after this webinar of this commission. So I expect that our participants will be listen attentively, at the same time take notes, because barely 2 months from now, we are going to start our classes in higher education institutions. We have been telling our stakeholders that they need to answer to the needs of our learners. They have to conduct survey if what kind of learners they have, especially that we are experiencing the so-called pandemic around the world. Let's identify as to how many of these learners have the capability and accessibility to internet connection, those with partial connectivity, as well for those who do not have capability. The modules that we are going to prepare is based from what our learners need. So we need to consider all these things. And of course, the design of modules, we have to consider the policies, standards, and guidelines of the Commission. So for sure this afternoon, with the presentation to be given to us by our two speakers, and at the same time by the end of the presentation, we are going to demonstrate to you the system that developed by the Commission on Higher Education, Regional Office 9. This system was approved during the first directorate meeting by no other than the chairperson in order for us to test run and to accept documents directly from our stakeholders. The purpose of this, of course, in order for you first, not to print volumes of documents and transport to our office. On our end, we will not be having also accumulation of this volume of documents. So we are going to reduce these printed materials into a soft copy. Then you can upload directly to our system. This process and the objectives of the system that we developed will be properly demonstrated to us by Engineer Santa Teresa. So our concern right now, I know for the fact that most of our institutions, they already conducted several webinars relative to the so-called new normal, how to respond to the so-called new normal. But our concern in the Commission on Higher Education is the content of the different modules that you are going to give to our learners. So we want to see that a kind of module, it's an interactive module, explorative module, a module that can really show that in the absence of teachers and in the absence of the teachers in the classroom, still the teachers can personify themselves through the delivery of printed modules or online modules directly to the private place of our learners. So with that, we'll not take much of your time because there are more very important learning process that we are going to learn this afternoon. So thank you, stay tuned with us, and God bless you all.
Thank you for that, Dr. Roddy P. Garcia. At this juncture, for documentation purposes, I am requesting everyone to please turn on their videos for a photo opportunity. Again, I am requesting everyone to please turn on their video for a photo opportunity. Page 1, keep on smiling. Page 2. Page 3. And the last page, page 4. Thank you so much. Let us now keep the ball rolling on our orientation on Commission on Higher Education document submission, flexible learning system, and higher education module writing and design. Our first speaker is a full-fledged professor of the Jose Rizal Memorial State University. She is currently the Director for Instructional Materials Development at the JRMSU. She holds 2 doctorate degrees, 1 Doctor of Philosophy in English major in language at the University of San Jose Recoletos, earned in 2018, where she was a recipient of the Faculty Development Program of the Commission on Higher Education as a CHED scholar. And second, the Doctor of Education major in Education Management at Jose Rizal Memorial State University in 2014. She earned her master's degree in English language teaching at the Mindanao State University, Bongao, Tawi-Tawi in 2005. And has been awarded the Academic Excellence Award and ranked first in the comprehensive examination. She earned her bachelor's degree in secondary education major in English in MSU in 2002, where she graduated magna cum laude and recipient of a College Leadership Award. She has a strong foundation in language education, language teaching, and research. She has various administrative and teaching experiences, as she functions as the OIC Director for Instructional Materials at JRMSU from 2015 to 2019, Internal Auditor from 2015 to 2016, School Paper Advisor, Research Coordinator, and the AACUP Area Coordinator from 2012 to 2014, a recipient of various academic awards from elementary to college. She was showed exemplary performance in her field and achieved academic excellence and leadership awards in her field of specialization. She was awarded Best Paper twice, Best in Oral Presentation, and Best Presenter from 2016 to 2017. Our speaker is also a researcher and a writer. She had numerous international journal publications and international presentations attended, where she received as the Best Paper Presenter. She has also various speakership engagement in the local and national level, banking on general development, sensitive learning packets, module development, instructional materials development, career orientation, manual development and evaluation, curriculum and syllabi enhancement, occupational orientation, quality management system, language development, journalism and teaching strategies. She has also various memberships in different organizations and honor groups. A language expert, instructional materials developer, a researcher, speaker, and an educator. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Dr. Jovelyn Maglangit Cantina.
Thank you so much, sir, for that very wonderful and very detailed information about me. Hello, my dear participants. Thank you so much for being with us today. And on behalf of Jose Rizal Memorial State University, headed by our university president, Dr. Daylinda Luz Arlapot, thank you so much for inviting me to share with you my knowledge, skills, values, and how to develop instructional materials, and of course, to share with you some practices that we have here in our university. So allow me to permission to share screen, sir. All right. Thank you so much to the OIC Office of the Director for Dr. Roddy B. Garcia. Thank you so much for inviting me, and also same felicitations is given to Sir Shamir Kasim and the rest of the Region 9 office family. And to all of you, thank you for being with us despite of your busy schedules. Due to the health crisis that the country is experiencing right now and the threats prompting the faculty and the students due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the Commission on Higher Education mandated the higher education institutions to limit the physical interaction of students and faculty in school premises by ensuring continuity of inclusive approach, use of appropriate modes of delivery. All state universities and colleges in the country shall implement a flexible learning for the academic year that will be starting in August 2020. Many members of the faculty of the different SUCs in the region have been doing online learning already, and most of them have been developing instructional materials such as modules, workbooks, laboratory manuals, practicum manuals, textbooks, source books, and other learning materials before the enhanced community quarantine. However, the development of the modules shall address the new normal, utilizing newer platforms and innovative tools to aid the teaching and learning process. So this training, you are able to enhance your knowledge. Again, you will be able to enhance your knowledge, practical skills and values that are necessary for the development of course modules, integrating gender sensitivity, internationalization, and flexible learning. This training will specifically enable you to develop the complete components of a course module and integrate gender sensitivity, internationalization, and flexible learning in the development of course module. The topics that we're going to discuss, and of course, to share with you some tips of this training are the following: definition of a course module, the difference between distance learning materials and the textbooks, modalities of flexible learning, learning outcomes, pre-test, contents, learning activities, and assessment. Before we're going to start with our lecture proper, with all the news that we have heard and read in the social media and even television and radios, we heard a lot of things about flexible learning. So will you please, do you have any other word that you could associate with the flexible learning? If you know the answer, please write them in the chat box. Okay, what is flexible learning? What is the other term for that? Or what are the other words for flexible learning? Okay, we heard about flexible learning. Do you have a word in mind in which we could associate with the word flexible learning? So aside from flexible learning, what else are the, okay, we have blended learning. Thank you, Ma'am Kimberly Muad. Anything else? Hybrid learning. Wow, thank you, Ma'am Marifin Napalaton. Anything else? What else? Your answers are all correct. Do you have? Composed of different modalities. All right. Okay, we heard a lot about mobile learning, online learning, yes, distance learning, new normal, yeah, new normal, and other things. So thank you so much for all your answers. Okay, so every one of us is really been understanding or trying to grasp what is this new normal all about, right? So I hope that every one of us will be going to understand it clearly. How are we going to develop instructional materials that will address and as we embrace new normal? So of course, because of the new normal, you're asked to observe social distancing, right? And of course, we're going also to have different modalities in teaching and a lot more things. And of course, because of that new normal, the continuity of learning should not be at stake, should not sacrifice this one. We have to continue the learning of our learners. So how are we going to develop modules? Because we really need this instructional material. So that would be my topic for today. Now, when we develop modules or other learning materials, we need to plan it based on the concepts of modalities of flexible learning. So in order to know what are the modalities of flexible learning, we have to identify first what is flexible learning. And of course, determine what are these modalities for flexible learning and how do we implement this? How do we do this? And why do we do this? To whom we are going to do this? Are we ready for this? Do our learners ready for this? Do we have the capability, the connectivity, the resources? So these are the questions that we need to address. So flexible learning, according to De Vera, cited in Cervantes 2020, that it is a broader term that focuses on the design and delivery of programs, courses, and learning interventions that address learners' unique needs in terms of pace, place, process, and products of learning. It does not necessarily require connectivity, but other SUCs are having the options of coming up with a flexible learning system. So the modalities would always depend upon the flexible learning system that you adopted and to be implemented. So the modalities of flexible learning, according to Hall in 2014, that blended learning is the modality that mixes different learning environments. So we have learning environments face-to-face, online, and you mix them. So that's blended learning. Now, what about distance learning? It's a modality of learning in which the main elements include physical separation of teachers and students during instruction. So the presence of the students and the teachers, okay, they are separated. Okay, there is physical separation. That means that they're not going to meet. Okay, now what about this one? Classroom-based versus distance learning, or base class versus blended learning. So in classroom-based, the basic resource is the teacher. So traditionally, and we were doing that one before the quarantine, okay, we have the classroom-based. that he or she may use the resources such as textbooks or audiovisual aids, but the teacher remains the central component of the system. So the teacher is the facilitator of the learning. The teacher is there. The students are there. Now, in distance learning, the physical presence of the teacher is replaced by a combination of learning materials. Almost all the teacher's task is carried out by the distance learning material. So in distance learning, we have to develop an instructional material, a learning package, because this learning package will be utilized by the students because there is an absence of the physical presence of the teacher. So the teacher is not there. So the learning material should speak on behalf of the teacher. Now in blended learning, there is a scheduled time for face-to-face and a scheduled time for distance learning. This means that all activities are well planned to maximize the face-to-face or distance mode. That is why in the development of your learning package, you need also to include course guide, syllabus, study schedule of the students, and other things, or contract learning, because those materials will be in which that the scheduled time for distance learning will be well discussed and stated there. So that's blended learning. Now, in developing our instructional materials, we need to understand flexible learning elements, and these are pace. First, pace. So what is pace? Okay, now we have to consider that our students are diverse. The background of our students are different because that's what we have understood and learned, that our learners are unique. That means that they have their own growth and development. So you should be able to state there very well the delivery of the schedules. Okay, how the time, the date, how many hours, you have to include that one. And what about the place? Physical location. Are you going to have you're going to have distance learning? Are you going to have the face-to-face or the blended? Okay, so you're going to identify the physical location. And the last one is mode. Okay, this is really one of the important things, because learning with technologies. Now, if we are having online teaching or blended blended learning, then we have to use technologies. We have to use gadgets, cell phones, and other things, not only printed instructional materials. Now the question is, are we ready for this? Do we have resources? Do our students have this capability? Do our students are computer literate? And not only computer literate, but others are techie, others are still coping with technology, with the fast track of technology. So these elements are the things that we need to consider, because if not, then at the end of the semester, we will get frustrated and the outcomes will not be achieved. Now, these are the points of discussion. How should I plan for the entire flexible materials to continue providing holistic educational experience? Okay, so that means we need to plan. Okay, the flexible learning materials cannot be done overnight, cannot be done just a click of or a tick of our finger or a click of our finger. It should be coupled with a lot of strategic planning. And we have to consider these materials that they are flexible in order to provide holistic educational experience to our students. Another thing, what special techniques will I apply to promote active and effective learning through the various modalities? Now, that's what I've said. We have to address multiple intelligences, learning needs, learning styles, and the diversity of our students. So what are the techniques that I'm going to apply in order that my students, even though I'm not around or I have minimal guidance, it still appears that it's active, effective, and it's interesting. It's somewhat like exciting, and it's fun-filled, and they really wanted to read and learn in the course. So what is a course module? It is a learning material that is structured. Again, take note of the word structured, with the aim that students can learn independently without or with limited guidance from the instructor. So if they opted for, if the students upon enrollment opted for blended learning, then there is limited guidance, but if online teaching or other things, then it's without, no, like modular approach, without the guidance from the instructor, and only the material will going to be the guide or the reference of the learner. So it's a material that is structured. Next, learners can go through the material at their own pace and at their own time. Now, we do understand we have to consider and we have to be considerate that before our learners became our students, they were having their different problems, their lives. They were siblings, they were offsprings, okay, and they have other problems. So we need also to consider that others are having part-time jobs, others have no access to internet, others do not know how to use internet, others are still coping with the modalities, others are even non-readers, others are really not good in the class, or what we call slow learners. So we need to consider it one. So the way we design a module, we should be able to be considerate in designing it, in which that we have to understand this concept that we have to learn that material at their own pace and at their own time. Now, course modules must be self-explanatory. So we have to design it using clear, simple words or phrases. Use the simple language. Now, I know that there are some courses of the different programs that require terminologies. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, but the totality of your material should be simple in language construction, simple in the use of the terms. So if you're going to have those jargons, no, these are the specialized terms, then perhaps you may going to attach glossary for that, or you're going to define it well so that the students could understand. Next, self-contained, self-directional, without your presence. That's why later on I will show you how are we going to design our instructional material in which it's self-directional and self-evaluation. So we are going to develop self-guided assessments, and of course, self-learning. Then let's discuss, okay, let's try to have a good sharing about this, of the difference between the DL materials or the distance learning materials, and module is one of it, and compare it to textbook. Okay, so for the DL materials, they are typically divided into study units, sometimes representing a week's work. Okay, they are not into lessons, they are not into chapters, just like textbooks that are based on topics rather than the study time. In the DL materials, you shall include a study guide on how to use the materials and how to study by oneself. That's why it's very important to attach also a course guide or a study guide of the material. While the textbook do not include study guides or study guidance. It's just a reference for the teachers and the students to use inside the class. Next, include study tips. Okay, example, on note-taking. You're going also to provide tips to your students on how they're going to develop a blog. Like, for example, you have one of the learning activities that blogging or vlogging. Now, do not assume that all of our learners know the blogging and vlogging, although they have seen or heard this one. So you should also be able to provide for the readings or video tutorial, provide them links or video clips and how to do it.
Hablado ko sa tukere. Mucho mano kisi papa baka kere tu prinsipyo yata.
Okay, another difference is that the materials that we're going to develop shall include diagrams and pictures. While the textbook, they include diagram and pictures, but they are limited. And in including pictures and diagrams, you should be able to have copyright attribution or cite them properly. And I will show you how to cite them later on. And in DL material, you have to include numerous activities, activities that are congruent to the learning outcomes. Do not provide a lot of activities, and at the end of the day, they are not congruent to the learning outcomes. They're not complementing the course outcomes and of course the program outcomes. So you have to include activities, numerous activities, but that will cater the diverse learners also. And they are tightly structured, okay? Unlike in textbooks, they are not, they are loosely structured. What does it mean? That means that the material should consist or compose of components or sections. And of course, having different learning activities. You could also include epigraph, or we say quotation, that can be found beginning of the unit, that will give them an idea what is the unit all about. So that is one of the features of DL materials. Then next is address the learner as you. That's why in our instructions or directions, we may say that you may turn now on page 5 for the answer key, or to check your answer, you may click this link or turn to page 112. You will say, if you have problem on this and that, then you may view this video on. So we really have to address them as you. And of course, we have to provide feedback. So feedbacking is very important because that's one of the ways of assessing and guiding our students. How, to what extent have they learned? So we really have to return assignments. We really have to write. We really have to write something on the written article and other writing materials, because that's one way of giving them the feedback. So we really have to provide feedback on our in DL materials. Okay. Then how are flexible learning designed? So this is another question, okay? So a lot of models, okay? There are a lot of models in how to design instructional material. One is we have the ADDIE model, me Events of Instruction model, the CAMP instructional design model, the 5E that includes the engagement, explore, and other things. Then Merrill's principles of instructional design and Azure model. But let me share with you ADDIE model. The ADDIE model has these 5 phases. We have to analyze, design, develop, implement, and evaluate. So the ADDIE model is the generic process traditionally used by instructional designers and training developers. So while perhaps the most common design model, there are a number of weaknesses of the ADDIE which have led to a number of spin-offs or variations, but it depends upon you of what kind of model you are going to utilize. But in our case, we are utilizing the ADDIE model. So in the analysis phase, you have to identify who is the audience, what are their characteristics, identify the new behavioral outcome, what types of learning constraints exist, what are the delivery options, what are the online pedagogical considerations, and what is the timeline for the completion. Then we have here also another phase, and that is design phase. In this phase, you apply instructional strategies according to the intended behavioral outcomes by domain, okay? Or others may not be following this domain, and it depends upon what learning outcomes they could develop, but hopefully we will going to focus on the development of outcomes under psychomotor domain because they are transferable. So design the user interface and user experience. Okay, you have to consider the user's experience. Then create also a prototype. Okay, that serves as a model. Okay, and then apply visual design on that. So in the development phase, which you will going to experience later on, you're going to create and assemble the content assets that were created in the defined phase based on the learning outcomes. Okay, programmers may also work to develop and or integrate technologies if you wanted to have blended learning and or online learning, in which you're going to create digital content of your module or other learning materials. And also you're going to create course websites. And testers may perform the procedures and that the project will be revised according to it. Then the implementation phase, okay, this is very important because before having this one, ensure that the facilitators or the teachers or the instructors and professors are really trained on the course curriculum, learning outcomes, method of delivery, and testing procedures. And you have prepared also your learners, including training them on the new tools, or they have be able to have student registration. And also ensure that the learning packages or materials hands-on equipment, tools, CD rooms, and software are in place, and that the learning application or website is functional. Is there availability of the strong Wi-Fi connection? Then we really have to prepare that one. That is before the implementation phase, we have to consider that. Now, in the evaluation phase, we have two parts, the formative and summative. So the formative evaluation is present in each stage of ADI process. And the summative evaluation consists of tests designed for specific criterion related reference items and providing opportunities for feedback from the users. Okay. And next, what are the modalities in flexible learning? Okay, so first is we have traditional modality. Okay, that's the face-to-face. And then we have the e-facilitated modality, in which that you utilize social media, you utilize Google Classroom to also facilitate the submission and also to communicate with them. And then online modality, so the way we design our course website, it has to be creative, it has to be comprehensive, it has to be complete and accurate, because without your presence, the students will be able to understand or learn the course very well, and with limited guidance of the faculty or the instructor. Then we have to consider also variables in planning for the flexible learning modules. So first is we have the learner profile, context issues, and learning outcomes. Now, for learner profile, we have to consider the literacy level of the students. We have to consider the study skills. How do our students learn? What level? Are they really proficient enough to do the task? Are they prepared? Are they competent enough? We really have to consider that one, because if not, then we will get frustrated. We're not going to achieve our learner outcomes. Next, ICT skills. Are they computer literate? If you opted for online teaching and e-facilitated modality. Another one, technological tools. Do they have gadgets? Do they have cell phones, Android phones? Do they have laptop? Okay. Do they have data? Okay. And do they also know how to use Google Classroom? So these are the things that we need to consider. And the next is the prior knowledge about the course. Okay. So we should be able to have to diagnose the knowledge of the students prior to development of the learning material. So perhaps you will be able to ask from those faculty or teaching the same course of how's the performance of the students. Are they all mga kuan ba, kanang passers ba, or hanggang ngayon they are still coping? So we need to consider it one. Another thing is learning situation. Now we have to consider also the situation of our learners. Some of our learners, even up to now, they're still in cities, they're still in barangays and provinces na naka-quarantine. They're not allowed to go home. And others are still in other country and they are there and they cannot go home. So we have to consider this one. What is the situation of our learners? Next is context issues, right? So we need to understand that where do our learners come from? Okay, are they under GCQ, ECQ, MECQ, MGCQ? Perhaps some of us may overlook this one. We need to consider these things. Another one, are they part-time students? Do they have jobs? Are they in the family with many family members with younger what you call the one siblings that they need to attend to? Do they have family members na still taking care of their grandparents and of course their parents? We need to consider that one. Are they the breadwinner of the family? So these are the context issues. Next, do not have resources at home. All right, so we need also to consider the availability of the gadgets, the channels of how we are going to conduct our modality of teaching and learning. So perhaps they do not have access to textbooks and other materials because they are in prior to the ECQ or GCQ. They went home to their bukid or to or to their parents, and it's a far-flung area. So they don't have access to textbooks and internet connection and other learning materials. And also this one, they do not have access to library or internet cafe and do not have access to laboratory equipment. So these are the things that we need to consider. Then we have also this one. Before we proceed with our talk, let's have an activity. If the person making the sand art is your student who will do the task, what objective you set for him or her? So if the person making the sand art is your student who will do the task, what objective will you set for him or her? So please, can we have your answers on our chat box? Okay. If a person making the sand, this is an activity shared to us by one of our speakers, si Dr. Magno. So if person making the sand art is your student who will do the task, what objective will you set for him or her? Okay, as of now, we don't have an answer. Can we have even one participant to write his or her objective on the chat box? Okay, the situation is, if the person making the sand art is your student who will do the task, what objective will you set for him or her? Okay, so others are still thinking. So I hope that you're going to share with us later on what objective you're going to set for him or her if the person making the Santas is your student and he or she will be the one to do the task. So comment down your answers on the chat box. Thank you so much. So let us proceed. So another thing that you need to consider is the learning outcomes. Before you start writing your materials, you have to go back to your course syllabus. You need to have the following essential information. First, you should be able to understand and should be able to grasp the idea of the course description. What is the course all about? And learning outcomes, another one is the content list. Now, points to consider. Are my students ready for flexible learning? What types of students do I have who will be using the FL materials? What are the circumstances of my students that I need to consider in planning, designing, and delivering the activity? So before you develop the course learning outcomes, or for instance, you're going to revise your course learning outcomes from your course syllabus, then you need to ask this because we already have approved syllabus prior to the GCQ or ECQ. So perhaps you wanted to revise them. So these are the things that you need also to consider in the development of your course learning outcomes. So let's have an activity. Number 3, blank describe what students are able to demonstrate in terms of knowledge, skills, and values upon completion of a course, a span of several courses, or a program. So if you know the answer, please write your answer on the chat box. Okay, what do you think is the answer? Blank describe what the students are able to demonstrate in terms of knowledge, skills, and values. Okay, we have here the first one who answered, Rosenda Boris. Okay. Okay, so some of you have different answers, but most of your answers is course learning outcome or learning outcome. So thank you so much. Congratulations. That's it. The answer is learning outcomes. So learning outcomes describe what the students are able to demonstrate. So later on, we will discuss what is the difference between learning objectives and learning outcomes. So again, it's the demonstration of knowledge, skills, and values upon completion of a course. And it has a clear articulation of learning, and it serves as the foundation of evaluating the effectiveness of teaching and learning process. So in identifying the outcomes, these are the things that you need to understand. Outcomes happen. So, nahitabo, no? Nangyayari. Outcomes are tangible actions Okay, in which that actions can be seen, yung talagang present siya. Okay, require competence, not just mental process. Again, not just mental process. Yung nakikita mo talaga, the actions are done. Driven by strong action verbs. Again, strong action verbs. They are not just behavioral verbs, but action verbs. Another one is outcomes are culminating activities. So the culminating activities or the activities that you design should be congruent or should complement the outcomes. And outcomes need to last in the future, which means that the learning that they have, no, that the outcomes that they were able to achieve should last in the future. It's not only true to this GCQ or ECQ. It's not only true for flexible learning modality, a system, I mean, and it's not only true for 2 hours or 1 week, but it will last in the future. That means that the skills are transferable. The skills are lifetime. The skills are for the future. So we should be able to have that future skills. Then in the light of CMO 46 series of 2012, we need to use the OBE framework to determine the learning outcomes. So in this approach, the learning outcomes determine the content. Unlike before, perhaps you design your syllabus and you list first the topic and then you design the learning outcome. In this case, the OBE says you have to determine the learning outcomes and you are going to have content that will aid on the achievement of the learning outcomes. And these outcomes determine the topics and concepts. So if there are topics that are least significant, least contribution on development of outcomes, let us save paper. Let's be save also our time and also the students to read the manuscript or the material. So we should come up or develop topics or include topics and concepts that can be used by the students in achieving learning outcomes. Then adopting some OBE principles, according to Sir Magno 2020, that we have to design the lessons around the course outcomes, or we have to design the units around the course outcomes. So lessons or topics are rearranged according to the order of outcomes. So we need to come up with the arrangement of the contents based on the learning outcomes. It's not that, oh, I wanted to have it here, I wanted it to be the first one, I wanted it to be the last of the unit. It should not be like that. It should be rearranged according to the order of the outcome. The next, teach outcomes, okay? Then we have here that the contents are used as platform for the outcome, okay? So it should, the contents, they are used as a platform for the outcome. It's not the other way around. And of course, we have here that directly create tasks for the students to demonstrate the outcomes. Okay, so you should be able to have outcomes that will directly create tasks for the students in the demonstration of this outcome. Then identifying outcomes. We need to develop outcomes that have life roles. Okay, as what we've said earlier, that these outcomes should can be used, okay, in the future, leading to the future. So we wanted our students to be listeners and communicators. In the development of our learning outcomes, we need to visualize our learners to become leaders and organizers, to become team members and partners, supporters and contributors, teachers and mentors, learners and thinkers, implementers and performers, problem finders and solvers, planners and designers, creators and producers. How can they have these life roles if our outcome is like this? Identify the basic parts of computer. How can they be implementers, creators, and producers if that would be the case? So I do hope that in designing the learning outcome, we have to consider this. Then, learning outcomes shall not be too general and too hard to measure. Sometimes we are overexcited. We think to overthink and create or come up with outcomes that are too general, and sometimes we need to base it on our standard, and it's too hard to measure. So remember, we have to consider our learners. So examples of too general and too hard to measure: appreciate the benefits of acquiring foreign languages. Okay, so how do we measure their appreciation of the benefits that they acquire from the foreign language? That's too hard to measure. Access resources in the internet. Now remember, that's too general. There are a lot of resources in the internet. The next is we have demonstrate confidence in their knowledge of the subject matter. Okay, so they demonstrate the confidence, and then how do you measure that? What are your bases? Okay, now others may think that having outcomes which have the words learn, appreciate, and know, or let's say learn, appreciate, what is that other word, the verb, that is, they said that too general. Even this one, look at this. They are behavioral, access, demonstrate, but it's too hard to measure, too general. So we have to be specific. So how? Okay, examples of specific and measurable. Transfer data outside the computer using output devices such as screen and printer. So see, this is an action verb, strong action verb, right? And what are they going to do? They have to transfer data. What data outside, where they are going to transfer the data? Outside the computer. And how they're going to do that? They have to use output devices. And what are these devices? Screen and printer. So see, even in the development of learning outcomes, we have to be specific, because it's what we have said a while ago, that learning outcome is part of the components of the course module, and course module should be self-directional. So without screen and printer, without output devices, the students may have their own interpretation. They may have their own ways, depends on their background experience. And the teacher will get angry. Oh, my student is out of track. It seems like he has misunderstood the instructions of this and that. So even the development of learning outcomes, we have to be specific, and we have to use action behavioral verbs. Next, publish a travel blog on a web page. So what they will do, they have to publish. It's not only determine the process of blogging. It's not only that use language effectively in writing. Okay, that is not a learning outcome. And the outcome should be publish a travel blog on a web page. So what kind of blog? It's a travel blog, because we have lots of blogs. And then where? On a web page. The next, perform a contemporary dance to express the message of the poem. Okay, so what are they going to do? They have to perform. What are they going to perform? Contemporary dance. Why? To express the message of the poem. So the students are directed what to do. They're not just going to dance. They're not just going to perform, but they're going to express the message of the poem through performing contemporary dance. Then we have the characteristics of good learning outcomes. They are written with behavioral verbs and reflect appropriate levels of learning. Okay, we have to consider the development of IM. What year level are we going to utilize these IMs or these modules? Is it elementary, secondary, senior high school, college, and what level in college? First year, second year, third year. You have to consider that. Describe what the student should know: cognitive, think, affective, or do psychomotor. But we encourage you to develop outcomes that will reach this one, that will going to address this one, psychomotor. Then they are SMART: specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. Then for the example of cognitive domain under intellectual skills, we have sketch the basic components of an engine, design a computer device using an art program, then write a reflection paper based on the given short story. So you notice we have here the word sketch, design, write. So these are action verbs. And some might think that Why it's under cognitive domain and not in psychomotor domain? They are performing actions. Now, it's because we are targeting the intellectual skills. Okay, intellectual skills. Now, let's go to affective domain or the professional skills. You are still going to use active behavioral verbs or action verbs, strong action verbs. Write an original song composition which promotes gender sensitivity. Act out the last scene of the story. Publish an opinion article in a web page on the implementation of the flexible learning system in China. So this is what we are talking about. This is integrating gender sensitivity and, of course, internationalization in the development of our learning materials. I will discuss further on internationalization later on. Then psychomotor domain, we really encourage you to develop outcomes in which that we will target transferable skills. So first, demonstrate the basic computer skills. So your activity shall let the students to perform basic computer skills, perform the contemporary dances in the world, or invent a device based on the model. So that makes these outcomes psychomotor domain and not cognitive domain because they are transferable skills. So develop learning outcomes and not objectives. So even some of the materials that we are using right now, and they have that brand identity on the cover page. This is an OBE material. When you look at the content inside and look at the inside, one of the components of the material, there's learning. They said learning outcomes, but actually it's written in this way: identify, determine, and other things. So let's have a sharing about this, of the difference between objective and how to develop an outcome. Of course, there's nothing wrong if we set objectives. Yes, because that's our aims. Okay, what we want our others to know, but the outcomes is not like that. So for the objective, if you say identify the hardware components of a computer, the outcome shall be one of this, or this could be an example: transfer data outside the computer using output devices such as screen and printer. Okay, if you have the objective that you want a student to write a narrative on one's practice teaching, then you may say publish a blog on a web page about practice teaching. Then determine the message of the poem. Then you could say perform a contemporary dance to express the message of the poem. So see, they are actions. Here, there are actions, not only mental actions, identify and determine, but we have here actions that can be seen and they are transferable. Okay, another one, determine the management issues in tourism industry. That's your objective. But what's the outcome? Publish an opinion article on the current management issues in tourism industry in Mindanao. So it's very specific, Mindanao. Unlike here, tourism industry, it's not specific. So perhaps the students may be misguided and try to browse the net, ask people about issues in tourism industry, but they tend to be misguided because what the outcome shall be, they should be able to know, they should be able to publish an opinion article on the issues in tourism industry in Mindanao. Next, another objective is use the language effectively in writing. Okay, that's your aim. That's your objective. You want them to use the language effectively in writing. Perhaps Tagalog or Arabic or Korean or English or other language. Then for the outcome, you may have this example: record police blotter on the different incidents or write a police blotter on the different incidents. So that's how you're going to develop it. Next, adhere to research ethics in writing. So they said now this is under affective domain, and that's your aim. That's your objective. You want them to adhere to research ethics in writing. Now, what is the outcome for that? It could be this one: cite sources using APA 7th edition. So with that, they were able to observe research ethics and writing. Now, you also have to consider the following in writing outcomes. First, outcomes are always intended for the learners. The outcomes are not for the teachers, not for anybody else. but for our learners. Students, the audience or participants in a training program or teaching learning process. Next, outcomes can be specific and measurable. Each outcome should have a corresponding assessment to determine whether it was met. Sometimes we have 5 learning outcomes, but we only have 2 activities. So they are not congruent. They are not parallel. They are not complementing each other. So what happened to the other learning outcomes? How do you measure them? Okay, those are the things that we need to do. We have to revisit our instructional materials. We have to repackage them. We have to revise them. Then we also have this one for the objective. If this is your objective, like for example, given a microscope with a glass slide students in the biology class, okay, this is your assessment. Okay, I'm not saying this is an outcome, but perhaps this is your objective, and this is the assessment. And also this one, given the constructed one anemometer, and this is the assessment, an example of assessment. The listing of the wind speed every 5 hours. Given 1 inch, and then this is the assessment also, that the measurement of the gene floor. So see, in your first objective, they are implementers. Second, they are designers. And the last one, they are performers. Okay, so we should be able to have an assessment on that. So how to develop your course outcomes? Start with a STEM sentence. So you may write it this way, or you will be able to come up with your own. It depends upon the format or the guidelines of your the development of your instructional materials. But as of now, I may suggest that you will start with the STEM sentence. Example, at the end of this unit, as what I said, we're not going to use chapter, we're not going to use module, we are going to use a unit. You will be able to then determine the learning outcomes. Now, for more reading or information about taxonomy circles by Atkinson 2013 and also revised Bloom's taxonomy action verbs, you may click this link later on. Anyways, this will be provided to you later on, and visit these websites for further information about the taxonomy circles and the revised Bloom's taxonomy action verbs. So, which of the following is an example of a learning outcome? So we have A, B, C, and D. So as flashed on your screen, may I ask our dear participants to answer. Write your answer on the chat box. Is it understand the message of the story, identify the parts of a sentence, demonstrate understanding of the essay, or develop a conceptual framework of the study? Okay, we have a lot of participants who already answered. To give time for our other participants to write their answers, we will give you 20 seconds for that. A lot of you had answered D. Let's find out if you had really understood our discussion a while ago, or if you are paying attention to us, or if you're tuning in with us. B and D. And others have 2 answers. Okay. And the correct answer is, kindly check, this is what we call self-guided assessment. The answer is letter D, develop a conceptual framework of the study. Somebody answers letter B, identify the parts of a sentence. This is not an outcome, this is an objective. You want your students to identify the parts of the sentence, but that is mental, okay? They are performing it mentally. We have to develop transferable skills. And to do that, they should be able to develop a conceptual framework of the study, perhaps using art program and other software. So pre-test. Okay. Pre-test is part of the learning materials and even in the development of course modules. So pre-test assesses students' proficiency in the skills that are going to be taught. And it is a test taken before the content. So the pre-test is designed to know, to assess the student's prior knowledge about the things that you're going to have in the unit. And it's a kind of also an example of formative assessment. So your learning material should have assessment, and one of them is a pre-test. So the pre-test shall be well structured. Okay, it should be complete. Okay, at most 5. I mean, at least 5. It's not only 1 or 2. It should be 5 or at most 10. That's the ideal number of items, and it's appropriate for your students' learning. Do not come up with a pretest that is intended for mga lawyers or professionals and you're dealing with first-year high school students. They varies like pre-assessment quizzes, self-assessment activities, and prompting questions, and shall contain specific and clear directions. Okay, sometimes you tend to ask mga questions. Those are prompting questions to measure if they have understood. So this is an example of a pretest. It shall be well structured, like you have here the name of the or title of the pretest, or the type of test. So fill in the blanks. You have here the directions, okay, and then you have here the blanks before the number, because you said the directions on the space provided before each item, write through, and then you design it with a blank. So where do the students will going to write their answer? So in layouting, okay, in the layout of your material, you should be generous with the layout. Okay? You should be able to provide a space in writing and providing their answers. That is what we call having a generous layout. Then another example, okay, we have here directions. The following are this. So it's a fill in the blanks again, but it's in another format. And you could still come up with your own design. These are just examples. Okay, another one is a multiple choice. All right, and then another example. Okay, this is fill in the blanks that will require higher order thinking skills, because they're not just going to understand it, but they're going to choose which of the following is the correct answer. It depends upon their understanding to this. So this is not a simple recall, but it's the application of what they have understood about the following leads. And we also have these prompting questions like how would you compare or contrast, explain in your own words what facts or ideas show that, what examples can you find to, how would you show your understanding of, what approach would you use to, what might have happened if. So these are the examples of prompting questions. Now, after the pretest, you need to write, it's either a feedback or we're going to have a box where you have further instructions, because it's self-guided. Okay, this is one of the features or characteristics of a module with flexible learning. You will be able to have a feedback or be able to have further instructions. So for example, if you got, or you might say congratulations or thank you so much for taking the test, or if you want to introduce internationalization, you will say "Chikayo," okay, and you will say "Gracias." So you may use those language, mga famous expressions, mga words and phrases, so that the students will also going to check, oh, what is this new term that my teacher is introducing? I'm so excited to know what is this all about. So that's an additional learning and indirect learning from you. So you have here, if you got 5 correct items and below, please read and on page blank or view the video at this link. So this is one of the characteristics of the module or material in which that there is a utilization of flexible learning or adapting flexible learning. Now, the content. Let's go to content. Now, it comprises the vital information on topics. So, before going to this content, you may also say you have done taking the pretest. Now, you are ready to learn things about journalism, for instance, or effective writing, for instance. So, you are now into the content. So, another part of a module is the content. Then the content comprises the vital information. So take note of the word vital. It's not just information. Vital information on the topics based on the learning outcomes. Again, the topics, the information are based on the learning outcomes. It is the learning outcome that will determine your topics. And it's not that the topics will be based, is the basis for the development of learning outcomes. Another characteristic, content is organized in accordance with the principles of unity, clarity, coherence, and emphasis. So as being discussed a while ago, that we have to arrange your topic according to the learning outcome. The next is accurate, up-to-date, and appropriate to the level of students and gender sensitive. So accurate. So the vital information you included there, they are true. It's not only for your own opinion, okay? You have sources. And these sources shall be up to date. Now, there are some courses that we cannot get rid of coming up with references or sources that are not recent, perhaps in 1990s or 2000 or 2010. Now, there's nothing wrong with that if we are going to utilize, because what I've said, that in development of IMs, we have to consider also your resources. And there are some courses that do not have a recent or updated instructional materials being published, or sometimes in our library we don't have materials or books or textbooks and other things as our reference in which we could use in the development of IM. So dili siya updated, dili siya recent. So there's nothing wrong with it. But we encourage you to use updated references. But if you cannot get rid of those references, but at least you'll be able to have 90% of your sources are updated or recent. Then appropriate to the level of the students. There are a lot of arrays of vital information that you can access in the internet, in the library. So be sure that you are utilizing information that is appropriate to the level of your students. The next, gender sensitive, the way we write our material, the examples that we're going to have there, it should be gender aware, okay? Because there's already a memorandum from the civil service, and in fact, the gender and development is really they are really encouraging us that even in our documents, we have to use gender fair language, and we have to be gender sensitive. So how are we going to do that? We are going to discuss that one further later on. So most DLs or distance learning material, like the module, they are divided into units. So in your content, okay, the content of your module, okay, and even in the unit mismo, in the content of your module, the learning material is divided into units and sometimes correspond to a week's work. So in print, each unit is like a chapter of a book, and then on the web, units usually correspond to one subdivision of the course website. So this is an example. So you could see we have here page 1 and unit 1. By the way, I'm using the APA, the modified APA 7th edition format. So we modify it because that is really intended for research, but we are utilizing that format and we modify it. So we have here unit 1, basic concepts in journalism. Okay, so it's unit 1, not lesson 1. Then so we encourage you to use this one, unit 1. Then we have here the summary or the highlights, the main idea of the unit. So journalism came from, you could also use epigraph. So when you say epigraph, they are quotations, but be sure that if these quotations have require copyright attribution, you should be able to cite who are these people or authors who propose or develop or write this mga epigraphs or quotations. Then we have the learning outcomes. Okay, at the end of this unit, you'll be able to summarize, publish, create, how to do, then pretest. So this is just one of the format or the layout of how you're going to develop your course module. But then again, let's have originality in packaging or developing your items. You may be able to have a design, a different design, depends upon the guidelines and the format implemented by your institution. This is just an example. I'm showing you the format and guidelines of the university, Jose Rizal Memorial State University. Even the color, to have brand identity of your IM, you could come up with the different colors that best represent your institution. Then here in the course website, like for example, you have the e-facilitated modality, or you are deciding to come up with the online teaching, then this is how your course website will look like. So we have here course orientation, there's a date, and under the course orientation, there's a course syllabus, course overview, course study schedule, and course guide. So these are the things that you are going to include in the learning package so that when you create a digital content of that, it will appear like this. Then we have module 1 or June 1 to 2. Perhaps in the design of your module, the one module of the particular course, you are catering 2 modules. It's divided into 2 modules. Module 1, which will cover your midterm, and module 2, which will cover your final. So it depends upon you because you are the designer of your material. So these are just suggestions. So present the most important concept here. So have an important concept, limited words only. So this is one of the special features. You could have here a picture also that will best speak of the totality or the content of the one of this unit, or you could have just phrase or word, or perhaps you're going to have word art. It depends upon you. Okay. Then in content, you have to consider the grammar and mechanics. So the punctuation marks, capitalization, spacing, indentation, margin, and spelling. You have to observe that one. That's why it's very important that you have to decide on what format, what style you're going to adapt in the development of your IM, to have uniformity, to have what we call brand identity. Then we have proper in-text citations. They are observed. This is just an example, APA format 7th edition, or if you wanted to have the 6th edition, or if you are going to have the MLA. So APA is American Psychological Association, and the other one is MLA for the languages and others. Then use transitional devices in connecting sections. So it's very important that you organize your text or the content of your module by having or utilizing transitional devices. So the following are transitional devices, and you could also have further readings on the following links. For the use of addition, these are the sample words that you are going to utilize for illustrating, for emphasizing, for example, suggestion, and summary. So the use, having a wide vocabulary on transition devices, you're able to come up with a good quality of instructional materials. Do not only limit your words into in addition, and in the next unit in addition, and then last unit for example, and in the last unit above all. So you are always utilizing 1 or 2 transitional devices. So widen the vocabulary of our students by using different transitional devices. Then the use of gender-fair language or gender-sensitive language in the development of the content is encouraged. Avoid sexist language. So I guess almost all of the SUCs now, or even all of the CCs, are already implementing of they have the GAD, no? Gender and Development Offices, and they are implementing programs. So in the development of our IMs, we should be able also to promote non-sexist words. So we have to avoid sexist language. So what are the sexist language? This is a type of speech which discriminates against women by making them invisible and perpetuating notions of male supremacy. So this is a language that suggests that one is superior than the other and hinders one's goal to have a non-discriminatory and inclusive community. It's according to Lapot et al. In 2019. So this definition is lifted from the Gender Fair or Gender Sensitive Language Source Book of Jose Rizal Memorial University. It's a copyrighted source book of Gender Fair language. So before we are going to proceed with the next topic of this training, as flashed on your screen, we have the word mailman, and that is sexist. Can you give the non-sexist word equivalent of this word? If you know the answer, then comment now. Okay, what? Messenger? Mail person? Postal worker? Courier? Mail person? Thank you so much everyone for joining us. And thank you for sharing with us your answer, mail person. All right, so to those who are not able to comment, then comment now later, or I will now reveal the answer. Yes, your answers are all correct, but I also have another non-sexist word equivalent that I will going to share with you. and it's letter career. Okay, so that's the word for the day, letter career. So let us not utilize anymore, and let us try to utilize as much as possible. I know we are still coping with the new changes, and we are just human and we commit mistakes in the use of the language, even in spoken and written form. We are really encouraging you to utilize non-sexist words and phrases. So that is letter career for the mailman. So we have here examples, the use of noun in the development of our material, especially if we have here participants who are from the criminal justice, no, College of Criminal Justice. So the policeman arrested the criminal. If you are a language teacher and you are developing an IM, we have example there, and you say underline the noun in the sentence, and you write there the policeman, change that one into police officer. Now, in the use of pronoun, if he studies hard as a student can make the honor roll, then change he to you. If you study hard, you can make the honor roll. And the use of adjectives, sometimes we tend to say disparaging remarks, okay? Like for instance, you say, you're so manly, okay? You're as cute as a bunny, so in high cheeks or something like that. So those are mga disparaging remarks and words and phrases, derogatory. So the use of manly, instead of saying manly, you say strong. Yeah. So I hope that I was able to share with you on how we're going to develop our IMs integrating gender sensitivity, because in every region, place, even country, there are words that are really okay with them, but when you go to other countries, it's not. Just like for instance, in other country, when you say that my friend was the hostess last night, it's okay. They mean that it's a female host. But here in the Philippines, if you say that, it will have different understanding or meaning. In hostess means differently, and it's not a good word for us. Even the word mistress, right? In other country, they call it mistress. But here, when you will be labeled or called mistress, you will get angry, you will be anxious, and you will be stressed because you don't like to be labeled or addressed as mistress. And even the word sabotage, okay? So we are going to try to we encourage you to read manuals, source books, browse the net on the guidelines of how to use non-sexist words and phrases, especially not only in talking, but in writing instructional materials. Because in speaking, we can change that one, like say, oops, it's just a mistake, but in writing, there is an evidence, okay? So for more gender fair language, you may read the Civil Service Commission Memorandum, Circular 12 Series of 2012, the use of non-sexist language in all official documents, communications, and issue 1. And you may also read this guide to non-sexist language and visuals at this link. Okay, links will be provided later on because I'm going to share you with these slides. Then let's go to internationalization. How do we internationalize the course? Now, what is internationalization? Now, most of us have different concepts and understanding on internationalization. Perhaps according to Sheras in 2020 that in some universities, the focus of internationalization of the curriculum is primarily on outbound student mobility, which for pragmatic reasons involve a small percentage of students, because we cannot afford that all of our students can have mobility outside the country because of financial status, financial problems. Another thing is they lack the requirements. So not all students will be able to proceed to student mobility abroad. In some universities, the focus is on teaching in English, but rarely all programs, and the connection between teaching in English and the achievement of international and intercultural learning outcomes is not clear. In other cases, also, the focus of internalization of the curriculum may be primarily on content through the inclusion of specialized optional international modules and in others on increasing student diversity in the classroom and on campus without considering how this will internationalize student learning, not only individually and collectively, but also the approaches are insufficient. So how do we internationalize the course? Are we going to use French language all throughout the manuscript or Spanish? No. So these are the following tips. You may going to include an international perspective on the subject matter. Use articles from international journals in the field and newspaper articles. Employ foreign films, television, and radio broadcasts. Okay? Especially now that our students are millennial, no? Our millennial students now are fond of watching K-pop and K-drama. So we should be able to include also like Train to Busan and also The King, the Love in the Moonlight. Should be able to introduce also articles featuring Blackpink, BTS, okay, also other international artists. So those are the ways on how to internationalize the course. Then you may also provide activities for the learners to analyze internationally collected data. So you might provide a table or an illustration or a diagram that will show international collection of data. Then you could also have journal writing or other reflective writing on global topics and cultural issues. So what is our global topic nowadays? COVID-19. So ask them to write something, the reflection about COVID-19. You may ask them to critic, evaluate the implementation of about the COVID-19. How do our frontliners, how do the government addressing these issues and concerns? Other global topic also is what we call flexible learning. So not only in the Philippines, but perhaps you'll be able to have a comparison and contrast using the Venn diagram on their reflections about implementation of flexible learning, comparing and contrasting Philippines and China or Italy and China. So these are the things to do on how to internationalize the course. Not necessarily you're going to have one course module for a particular course, like for instance, the teaching of Korean language, the teaching of Mandarin, and so on. So if you can go do that, then much better. If you can have the mobility of your students, yes. But one way of internationalization, one concept, one way of doing and applying internationalization is to internationalize our course modules and materials. So this is an example of the part of the module in which that we integrate internationalization. So how much do you know about plagiarism and how it is viewed in American culture? So this is the concept of internationalization. Now, for some tips, organize your material from simple to complex. That is why in the development also of your learning outcome, it should be starting from simple to complex. So do not ask them right away to conduct case analysis if it's the first unit. However, if it's really necessary because perhaps the course is continuation, it's not basic, it's major, and you're dealing with the fourth year students and it's really needed in the unit, then go on. But consider also the learner's background and the learner's level. So if you're teaching first year and you notice that most of your students upon enrollment, because you have the list also already, you have the background, now they came from, no? In the senior high school, they are graduate from public schools, from rural schools. So you have to consider the development of your material. So you organize them from simple to complex. Next, include pictures, diagrams, graphic organizer, and other illustrations that may help clarify the information presented. So if you ask the learners to compare and contrast, you should be able to be generous in your layout and provide a graphic organizer of a Venn diagram. If you are asking for their prior knowledge and what they wanted to know, then you will going to use the KWL chart. Then you should be able to provide KWL chart, and the way you position it or format it is that it can accommodate answers of the students, because you have to consider that there are some students whose penmanship are bigger than the others or smaller than the others. So you are going to use illustrations, pictures, and diagrams, but you have to be careful also in utilizing pictures. As much as possible, it shall be authentic and local, okay? We say local, locally made, but with global perspective. And they are factual, they exist, not imaginative. And also, if you grab pictures, because you're not the one, you were not able to include pictures, no authentic pictures in which you're the one who took it, you grab pictures from the internet, you download it from this website, be sure to look into the policy or the copyright page, because if it requires copyright attribution, you really have to cite the sources of your material. And having a lot of sources in your pictures or material, that would lessen the quality of your instructional material. So as much as possible, if you wanted to have a discussion about COVID-19, then COVID-19 is global. There are a lot of pictures that you could download, or you could take and include in your material. So that's it. Use pictures and diagrams, but be sure to cite them. This is an example of what we call graphic organizer. This is a KWL chart, so it's very clear here that the students will not going to write here what I learned, because if you're not going to complete it, there is no directions or instructions, then perhaps the students will going to write column 3. So it says here, you're just going to fill out 1 and 2 columns. Then include pictures, okay, posters, okay, infographics, okay, authentic. So this is a monograph developed by yours truly, another monograph developed by Dr. Mark Herman Potoy, and another monograph developed by Madam Candy Bangkiao. Then we also going to utilize the sources. This is a picture contributed by Ma'am Ingok in 2018. So here, tangled and then tanglad. So see, it's creativity, creative, authentic. Then we have Ariel. And also, you're going to have pictures, sample of pictures in which the students can follow or can use this as a model in the performance of the task. So see, these pictures are product of the story, or no, it's not story. It's one of the things we found in literature, the Iliad and the Odyssey. Yeah. So after that, you're going to add instructions. So you will put it again in the box. So now that you have learned about the basic concepts of journalism, do the succeeding activities. So you really have to guide the students. Perhaps if you're not going to put this, they will only stop on the content. So you really have to direct them. So if you have questions regarding the activity, you may visit our Google Class with this code. If you had poor connectivity, you are given another week to accomplish the task. So you really have to talk to them. Then further readings, how much do you know about plagiarism and how it is viewed for video tutorial? Now, let's go to the learning activities. So we are done with the content. So we have to design now the learning activities. Again, for a recap, the design of our content based on our learning outcomes, the design also of a learning activity should be based also on the learning outcomes. So the learning activity is the core unit of instructional design. It organizes a unit of time in or out of class to address a subset of course learning outcomes. And they vary widely from the delivery of knowledge to development of student learning skills or future skills. Now, learning activities shall be congruent to the learning outcomes. Utilize local, authentic, factual, and global resources, vary for each lesson, and may also utilize computer-generated communication, which requires solving authentic real-world problems, promoting creativity and innovation, and acquire lifelong learning skills. Promote also gender awareness and sensitivity, promote values formation, and peace and development. So the characteristics of the learning activity align with course learning outcomes. They are focused on students' learning. They have clear instructions. They support students' multiple intelligences. supports the needs of diverse learning style, support gender awareness and sensitivity, promote values formation, peace and development, utilize local, authentic, factual and global resources, vary for each lesson, and so on. So these are examples of learning activities or learning strategies that you could utilize. First is you could have guided discovery learning, you could have interactive lecture, student teaching, problem solving, projects making or development, self-assessment and peer assessment, student presentations, self-study, reading, technology, role-playing, consulting. So this is an example in which we integrate internationalization in the learning activity. Activity 2, blogging. Directions, using a Venn diagram, compare and contrast journalism and creative writing of Philippines and Indonesia. So they're not just going to compare and contrast creative writing and journalism of Philippines and Indonesia. To have the outcome, then make a blog about these similarities and differences. Publish your blog on a web page. See a rubric in blogging on page 12 or view the rubric in the classwork. Submit the link of your blog to the Google Class. Okay. Or you might say, if you are having the modular approach, no, yung distance learning, then you may say, submit your output in the pigeon boxes allocated in the department or in your program, something like that. So for further instructions, you may also include this one. This is one of the characteristics of the FL modules or the flexible learning module. You are going to have further examples. Then you will say, now that you have learned about the basic concepts of journalism, do the succeeding learning activities. So those are the instructions. Then we have here, trace the brief history of campus press in the Philippines, use the acronym, start your sentence with the letter before the box, see rubric in writing on page, or download the rubric app. Okay, these are the examples. Another example, writing a feature story. So they're not just going to have a survey. See, if you were going to say conduct a survey, okay, but your outcome is they were able to write a feature story. So they're going to use this in the survey, and after that, they're going to write a feature story. Another learning activity, making a proposal. Okay, wanted them to be proponents, leaders. So you're going to have this graphic organizer so that they will going to list all the things or the information or the data that they need as basis in making the proposal. Now, what if your students are first-year students? So if your course outcomes at the end of the course, they'll be able to propose something like that, then this might be found in the finals, okay, this activity. So these are other strategies that you could utilize, teaching learning strategies, academic controversy strategy, analogy, art, and I have also a material in which you could have the A to Z teaching learning strategies, and we will provide you the details on that. So the instructions are there, the descriptions are there, how to do it, why you should do it. Those information or data are found in the material that I'm going to share with you later on. So another one, character map, Karos play. We also have consequences web, context pizza strategy, echo mind strategy, expert jigsaw, right? Even during the accreditation, the accreditors are asking us at most 10, right? Or a variety of strategies. So most of the materials like the syllabus that I have seen or evaluated when I am acting as a creditor in some SUCs, not only in our region, but even in Mindanao and Visayas, they keep on using the words reporting, role-playing, and oral recitation. So hopefully this will help you in revising your syllabus in the future and in development of your material, especially the flexible learning modules. Okay, we have the hot seat interview, jigsaw strategy. Okay, so you just have to shop, okay, shop, pick, and use these strategies. We have the scamper strategy. Sometimes, maybe perhaps we are already utilizing these strategies, but we don't know the title of that strategy. So that material that we are going to provide to you will give you information about particular teaching strategies. Okay, we have here the SWOT analysis. This is very famous SWOT strategy for business courses and programs, right? Marketing programs and courses also in tourism industry. I mean tourism and hospitality management. So they are utilizing this one. So perhaps in our courses, in the development of our modules, we should also, we may also use this SWOT analysis. Depends upon your purpose. Then we have this and that. Vocabulary map strategy, and so on. So that's A to Z. So after the learning activities, you are going to say, congratulations, or you would say, merci beaucoup, right? You did a great job, chukayo. You may now take the assessment. Or you would say, dakhang salamat, no? Dasig lang. So you could have it, no, to make it somewhat like conversational, somewhat like you're really telling the students you're part, you're there. Although you have the physical distance, you have physical separation, but you are with the student as part of his or her learning. And you will have here, to those who have not completed the activities, please send me a message in our Google Class, or you may say, contact me using the contact number that I had included in the course guide or in the learning package. So in that learning package, you should also include contact numbers and perhaps your accounts in FB, or if you don't like, then you may create professional, you may create account that is not your personal account in FB to cater students who will going to ask regarding the activities, okay? But we don't like that students will keep on calling us, disturbing us. We don't like that they keep on always following up. Then we should design our instructional material in which that there is already guide, there are already instructions embedded in the material. Then for more learning strategies, you may click these links. Then let's go to assessment, okay? One of the assessment is the mastery test, okay? We have done talking with a pre-test. So instead of using mastery test, we may use the term assessment, but because OBE is really on assessment. So it's up to you if you're going to still use mastery test or performance-based test or assessment. It's up to you. So assessment under this is the mastery test aims to evaluate the process of learning in a specific field of expertise. And it is used to examine the level of known and individual claims to possess. Now, in our case, the learning activities will going to address the learning outcomes, and the assessment will going to address the course outcomes. So course outcomes are different from learning outcomes. So course outcomes, these are the competencies or the outcomes that we want our students to achieve, the knowledge and skills they wanted to achieve all throughout the course. But the learning outcomes is the knowledge, the skills, demonstration of knowledge and skills they wanted to achieve in learning the lesson or the unit. So perhaps I may suggest that in your assessment here, you're going to address the course outcomes. Then course outcome, the assessment may be quizzes, self-assessment activities, and prompting questions that shall contain specific and clear directions. It could be performance-based mastery, but this shall require rubrics. Okay, if you have performance-based mastery, you will have rubrics. Now, why do we have quizzes, self-assessment activities, and prompting questions as part of our assessment? Now, since we are designing the material which will cater diverse learners, we have to consider also the needs of our slow learners. So prior to the performance-based test, then we will able to design or create self-assessment activities or questions and quizzes, just like yung katong mga traditional, like multiple choice, fill in the blanks. But they are not, I suggest they are not recorded, okay? Because we are going to provide the the answer key to the formative assessments that you will have. So for the performance, but be sure also that it's part of the course guide or learning contract that although these are not recorded, but they really have to take the test. Why? Because if not, then they will not complete the learning in this material or in this course, and they will be INC. Perhaps that's one of the things that you will going to include in your learning contract, that they really have to perform everything, the formative test as well as the summative test. So each test shall have a catchy title and directions must be clearly stated. So those learning strategies that you have read a while ago, you could use those catchy title to be included in your assessments. So these are examples of the traditional one. Okay, find it newspaper. We're just going to insert. This will cater our slow learners. This will cater to those students who really can't grasp, or not really that prepared to proceed to the performance-based test. So really have to answer this to provide them the knowledge, to provide them guidance, to provide them the necessary concepts on how to do the next activity. Okay, this is another example. Okay, for the performance-based, you could have this, no? This is just an example. Using the guidelines in creating Google Class, create your own class. Use this email ad to invite your instructor as a teacher. Use this email ad to invite your instructor as a student. See rubric on creating Google Class on page 98 or this link. So if you are having performance-based assessment, test, then please provide rubric. It's not that, oh, I forgot to include the rubric, and the students will going to ask you, call you, sir, how are we going to make or create the task or do the task? What is the rubric? I have to send it to you. So prior to the opening of classes, all these things are already prepared. Okay, another example of performance-based tests in which that they are going to develop a column article. Okay, they were going to choose, and you have here, submit your work in the pigeon boxes of your college, or you may turn it in our Google Class. So you really have to have clear instructions to guide the students where to submit, how to submit the output. Then another one, cartoonist be like. This is one of the activities. This is one of the assessments, I mean. So submit your work in the pigeon boxes of your college, or you turn it in our Google Class. And then after that, you may say after this assessment, you had just completed this unit. You are now ready to take unit 2. Sir, shall we pause for a moment? Perhaps we will going to have a break for 5 minutes before I'm going to proceed with the next topic, sir. Is it okay?
Yes, ma'am. We will just be playing the video regarding the CHED advisory number 7.
Okay, sir. In 5 minutes, I'll be back to give time
Thank you.
also for our eyes to one, because I think it's more than 1 hour that we are looking at the laptop, and it's not good for our health, and also to give time for our faculty to do some stretching. Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Guidelines for the Prevention, Control and Mitigation of the Spread of Coronavirus Disease 2019 in Higher Education Institutions. Commission on Higher Education COVID Advisory Number 7. The 24th of May 2020. On HEI's operations and work arrangements. In areas under ECQ, MECQ, and GCQ, HEIs are advised to observe the following guidelines.
Suspension of face-to-face or in-person classes until further directives from the IETF or issuance by the proper government authority that the province or city will be under MGCQ. For HEIs which intend to offer summer classes, midterm, and/or mid-year intersession shall only be for the following students: graduating students who need to complete their academic requirements. students whose subjects are scheduled in the summer under the PSG of their degree program, and students taking graduate studies. Only HEIs with capability for full online learning will be allowed to conduct summer classes.
OJT and internship programs foreign and local remain suspended until ECQ, MECQ, GCQ, and NGCQ has been lifted. However, for HEI and NGCQ areas, in-campus OJT and internship programs can be authorized provided there is strict compliance with physical distancing and other health protocols.
The opening of classes for 2020 to 2021 shall be based on the HEI's delivery mode subject to compliance with minimum health standards and the situation on the ground. HEIs using full online education can open anytime after May 31, 2020. HEIs using flexible learning can open anytime in August 2020. HEIs using significant face-to-face or in-person mode can open no earlier than the 1st of September 2020. All HEIs who are using the old academic calendar, June to May, are encouraged to change their academic year and open in August 2020 or later in the year.
HEIs should prepare for the opening of 2020 to 2021 by undertaking the following: preparation of the HEI facilities to comply with minimum health standards such as mandatory wearing of masks, hand washing and sanitation practices, safe physical distancing, reconfiguration of classroom spaces, provision of markers in public places, prohibition of mass gathering, among others.
Consultation with local health officials and local government units to determine the health situation in the locality, availability of public transportation, and other support services necessary for the operation of HEI, preparation of a contingency or continuity plan as to the precautionary and other health protocols in case there are suspected or confirmed cases, adoption of a flexible learning strategy or mode in delivering instruction by ensuring appropriate facility delivery system, faculty complement, and student support.
In coordination with local health officials and the local government unit, implementation of any of the following flexible enrollment procedures: online enrollment and payment through remittance services, scheduling of students who will be allowed to enroll on any given day, opening of satellite enrollment sites as practicable, other similar arrangements to limit the number of students allowed at any given time and ensure safe physical distance.
Mass gatherings are prohibited. HEIs are prevented from conducting in-person graduation ceremonies and other school activities until the prohibition for mass gathering is lifted. Private HEIs are advised to follow the guidelines of government agencies such as the Department of Labor and Employment as regards to the deployment of its faculty and its staff.
Dr. Jovelin, we can already proceed.
Sir Shamir, shall we continue now?
Yes, you may, ma'am.
Okay, I would like to Can you see now my slides, sir?
Yes, we can, ma'am.
Okay, so right after the assessment, you're going to write this. It's another box which provide the instructions. So you say, you had just completed this unit and then you are now ready to take unit 2. So this is just an example. You could come up with your own. Congratulations, you had successfully completed unit 1, and I'm sure you're now ready to take unit 2. So sentences or phrases like that would motivate our learners to proceed to the next unit. Okay, now let me share with you the slides of Dr. Paterno Baginat, one of our faculty here in Jose Rizal Memorial State University, and he talk about the topic assessment strategies in FLS. So allow me to share with you his slides. So why do we have to assess student learning? Okay, to know if we have achieved the outcomes, if our students have learned the unit, if the students had acquired the knowledge, the skills, and the attitudes that they want them to have to prepare them in the future. Okay, teaching and learning always come with assessment. So part of teaching and learning process is the assessment. Without assessment, we cannot say that we have successfully finished our teaching. We cannot successfully say that our students have learned. So teaching and learning and assessment, these are the three things that will go hand in hand together. So the basis for the analysis of student progress and achievement, that is according to Ion et al. In 2019, that the assessment is the basis of the analysis of the student progress and achievement. And perhaps out of this, we could come up with research proposals in order to analyze the students' progress and achievement. Now, assessing student also will provide us feedback to our learners. We'll be able to monitor also their improvement, how much they have improved, how much they have learned. And this also provides data for internal and external accountability. So assessment is not only a compliance to teaching requirement. We do not just assess because our institution require us to conduct prelim, midterm, or final exam, require us, just like for example, in the AACOP, you really have to provide or conduct assessment. So it's not like that. It's not compliance to teaching. It's not only an identification of strengths and weaknesses to improve instruction, according to Harris and Hodges, that we assess our students to know their strengths and weaknesses. And then that's the time that you will say, mga estudyante jud na ako, maugid ni sila, tama na sila dahil. So it's not only like that. And then administration of tests, giving of assignments, projects, and activities, and after scoring them, we compute their grades following the university or your college grading system. So let us not assess our student because it's part of the process in the administration of tests, that we provide assignments, projects, and activities because it's in the syllabus. It's not like that. Then we assess students not because we give the final grade and writing the GPA in the report of rating, because conducting midterm and final exams are not the basis that we had achieved the outcomes. That's not OBE. So why assessment is important to student learning? That is achieving the purpose and achieving the university's vision, mission, goals, and objectives. Remember, our learning outcomes are based on the course outcomes, and our course outcomes complement the program outcomes. And the program outcomes are designed in which embedded ang graduate attributes, university's vision, mission, and goals. So we really have to assess our students to know if we have achieved our purpose. Then, for the educators, why do we teach? Why do we instruct? Why do we profess? And for the university's vision, mission, and goals, graduate attributes, program outcomes, course outcomes, this one should be included in our purpose. Do we achieve this? So the way we teach, the way we instruct and profess should be what? Should be based on these things. Things that are required by the university. We develop the program outcomes, the graduate attributes, and course outcomes. So that is the one of these importance or significance why we assess our students, to know if we have achieved our purpose. Then we have to realize the graduate attributes. in which they are globally competitive, industry relevant, lifelong learners, effective communicator, innovative, and we have here 6 assessment types. First is the student engagement service. Then we have exit assessment, internal examinations and certifications, like perhaps for the those who are having mga courses or for the program hospitality management or tourism or events and nursing. Meron ba no? That they really require certificate. So they need to take that. Okay, for the exit assessment, some institutions, they are having that GEEP program and they have to take exit assessment. Summative tests, common for us. Formative assessment, common for us. And then the Rapid Tracer survey. So we also going to trace our students. Where do our students now? How are they doing? Are they employed? Are still looking for jobs? Are they unemployed? They were employed last week, but now they are not. So we should be able to have that one. Okay, so in some SUCs like JRMSU, we have the formative assessment and summative assessment. And in designing formative assessment, okay, we need to have backward mapping, and it should be aligned with the course outcomes, learning outcomes, and then we have the formative assessment strategy, and then the teaching learning strategy, and the feedback modality. How are we going to provide our insights, our comments, our words of improvement to our students? That's feedback modality. So in designing formative assessment, you need to be able to have the learning objectives, teaching learning strategies, and assessment strategies. So what are your aims for your student to learn? Okay, so we have here, what do I want students to know and how to do when they leave this course? Okay, we are talking about formative assessment, my dear participants. Then for the teaching learning strategies, what kinds of activities in and out of class? Again, not only in the class. So since we are, if you opt for blended learning, then perhaps using technology and online learning and other learning platforms will enforce my learning objectives and prepare students for assessment. Then what kinds of tasks will reveal whether students have achieved the learning objectives I have identified? So what are the strategies that you're going to utilize in IM in assessing the student? So for the formative assessment plan, you should be able to have this showing you a sample from our university. So we have the learning competencies, relevant topics, a formative assessment strategy, and the feedback modality. You could revise this. You could include other things that you think may going to relevant in the design of your formative assessment plan. So attached, also included in your learning package, is a formative assessment plan. Then here, formative assessment strategy, that's very important. So sample, objectives, and assessment. You say recall, recognize, identify, and these are the examples of the objective items such as fill in the blank, matching type, labeling, multiple choice questions. And this requires students to recall or recognize terms, facts, and concepts. So shown on the pretest and even in the assessment after the learning activities, we have also a section there where we provide mga traditional formative assessments or formative assessments like the following, the fill in the blanks and so on. You also have interpret, exemplify, classify, summarize, infer, compare, explain. So these activities, such as papers, exams, problem sets, class discussions, or concept maps. Okay, these are what? Execute, apply, implement activities such as or problem sets, performances, labs, prototyping, or simulations that require students to use procedures to solve or complete familiar or unfamiliar tasks. Determine which procedure are most appropriate for a given task. And also analyze, differentiate, organize attributes. So activities such as our case studies, critics, labs, papers, and projects, debates, or concept maps that require students to discriminate or select relevant and irrelevant parts, and also require them to determine how elements function together. And we're going to determine the bias, the values, or underlying content in presented. Okay, another sample words are strong action verbs that we could choose: evaluate, check, critique, assess. Activities such as journals, diaries, critics, problem sets, product reviews, or studies that require students to test, monitor, judge, or critique readings, performances, or products against established criteria or standards. Create, generate, plan, produce, design activities such as research projects, musical compositions, performances, essays, business plans, website designs, or set designs that require students to make, build, design, or generate something. So what are the formative assessment strategies? So these are the specific formative assessment activity or task that we plan to conduct to achieve the learning competencies. Okay? It could be traditional or performance-based or innovative or authentic. You could have that one. As we show on the pre-test, you could have prompting questions, you could have essay type, you could have other things there. Okay, so for the traditional formative assessment, okay, we have this quiz. You could use Mentimeter, okay, Google Forms, create a class if you're having a Google Classroom, and then online learning if you have the course website, and others. There are a lot of online games, free online games applications or websites that you can utilize in developing the quiz. So in this type of assessment, you use factual information, concepts, and discrete skill, and usually with a single best answer like multiple choice, true or false, short answer, or matching. Now, if you're utilizing, like for instance, Mentimeter or in other online quiz like Kahoot and others, so that will excite the students, that will arouse that will give them an interest to play the game or take the test. So especially if you are going to utilize this one, that will require it will provide the answer, so you will have right away the result who is leading in the quiz or assessment. Then learning conversations or interview, you will use that one if you're going to have investigative discussions with students about their understanding and confusions. You may also use this summary frames. So for description, we have an example. A blank is a kind of blank that. You may also have compare and contrast. Blank and blank are similar in that they both but blank and while. Okay, like for instance, you would say a cat is a kind of, a jaguar is a kind of cat that blank. Or you compare a contrast two things. Okay, you say apple and orange are similar in that they both but, and then blank while they blank. So that's how are you going to create your traditional formative assessment under description and compare and contrast. For the problem solution, you may say blank wanted to, but so. Okay, Maria wanted to, but what had happened? So that's problem and solution. The firefighter wanted to, but the nurse blank, so blank. And then the cause and effect. Okay, COVID happens because, flexible learning happens because, and a lot more. Then it could be a one-sentence summary. Students are asked to write a summary sentence that answers the who, what, where, when, why, and how questions about the topic. So Another traditional formative assessment is the exercises or problem set. Okay, you may also use Kahoot and other online games. So here, students solve simple problems applying the learned content and skills. So this is a misconception to others na psychomotor na ni kaya nag-solve sila. Now remember, that is a mental, okay? Mental, involving cognitive domain. So under the traditional formative assessment, you could also have an exercises or problem sets in which the student will solve simple problems applying what they've learned on the content. Then other strategies, we have the fill in the blank test, group discussion, word problem, and then let's go to innovative formative assessment. So here we are going to use rubric. Okay, and usually we are used with the utilization of the Likert scale, that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Nowadays, others are modifying it, utilizing 4, 3, 2, 1, or 1, 2, 3, 4, because always number 3, that is neither or nor, or it's moderate. So it will not give us a valid and a good result. So you might utilize the old one, the old Likert one, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, or 4, 3, 2, 1. Then here you provide 3 to 5 statements that are not clearly true or false, but are somewhat debatable. And your purpose is to help students reflect on a text and engage in discussion with a teacher or peer afterwards. Then the students will going to analyze, synthesize, and evaluate information. Okay, so here we have this one. Very important, important, so less important, not important. Okay, so the surgery hours, so we have here, okay, indicators or statements, and they are going to be sure to have clear instructions. Are they going to fill in with, are they going to shade this one? Are they going to mark an X or check? Should be able to provide clear instructions. Okay, this is another example in which that using those online quiz, or you will be able to have a feedback. You're going to have this one that two who have this, the blogs and articles have been useful. There are 2 who answer this. Then analogy prompt, okay? Present students with an analogy prompt or similarity. Example, a designated concept, principle, or process is like because. Okay, that's an innovative formative assessment. So it could be a 1-minute demonstrations presentation, and this provides opportunities for students to show their learning in oral and media performances or exhibitions. And for online learning, okay, you may have sync or asynchronous or synchronous communication, like the use of email or video conferences and so on. Or you are going to have Google Meet. You will utilize Google Meet for the students to demonstrate or present. So that's innovative formative assessment. So opportunities for students to show the learning in oral and media performances, exhibitions. So for online learning, they could utilize LMS, okay, like Google Classroom, TikTok. You know, some of our students now are fond of making videos in TikTok. And not only that, we are going to have TikTok in which na funny ang yung content. You could also use this one as an educational video, like you're going to have a TikTok for 1-minute video providing the information about a particular subtopic or topic. Then you may also use Twitter, FB, and other social media. Then computer-based assessment. Okay, there are a lot of mga applications and websites that offer, like for example, kanabitang mga online, like they're going to have the e-portfolio, okay, and we also have mga sa debate nga online na. So yan, that could be one of the computer-based assessments. But here, as shown on this picture, it is a systematic and adaptive software applications connected to curriculum outcomes. And one of the platforms that you could use is the use of Google Classroom. So it's a web-based test. So in your Google class, you create there a test and the students will going to answer. And if you have set it for the number of items, and also if you set deadline, then and also the answer key, then there is already a feedback, no? How many of your answers who answered correctly item number 1, and you will also be able to identify the summary, how many percent of the students correctly answered item number 1, and what is the commonly missed item. So that would be the basis of your, what we call the test analysis. Okay, collegeboard.org, you could also have that one, or Princeton Review. For the concept map, any of the several forms of graphical organized which allow learners to perceive relationships between concepts through diagramming keywords representing those concepts. And concepts are connected by labeled links and others. This is very nice if you wanted to come up with or generate a lot of ideas or information about that particular topic or word. Like for instance, you will just going to have here flexible learning, or you will have COVID-19. So students will be able to perceive what is the relations of this word to another word. So they're going to have diagramming of keywords. And you let them also to make concept map online using Canva. Okay, talk show performance. Okay, in our traditional teaching in the class, we have one of our culminating activities, the talk show. Okay, this will encourage our students to work or present in a team, okay, allowing the slow learners to cope and participate with the other learners. Okay. For a while, sir. Huh? That's it, ladies and gentlemen. So those are innovative, formative assessment. And there are a lot more of other assessments that you could utilize in your class, showing all the examples that I had shown you. So those are the sample of assessments that we're going to utilize in the classroom. So that's it. Thank you so much. I would like to say thank you to all of you for listening. And thank you also to the CHED Region 9 for inviting me to share our best practices, our knowledge, skills, and values on how to develop instructional materials. In behalf of Jose Rizal Memorial State University and also our like to say thank you to all of you for being with us. And thank you also for Dr. Paterno Baginat, Dr. Hilio Muro for sharing with me some of the resources and the rest of the IMD team. Thank you so much, Sir Rodi, and thank you so much, Sir Shamir, and thank you participants for listening with us and being with us even up to this moment. Thank you.
The topic discussed was very insightful. Thank you very much for the opportunity that you have given us, Dr. Jobelin M. Cantina, to listen to you. To show us a sample of an output for the module that the HEIs will be required to submit, CHED 9 is very honored to have with us the President of the Ave Maria College, Dr. Nueva Era B. Aranal, and to be assisted by Mr. John Paul Ciballes, a faculty from the Ave Maria College.
Good afternoon, everyone. Sir, can I be heard? Sir Shamir?
Yes, ma'am.
Clear?
Loud and clear.
Am I clear? Loud and clear. Thank you. So, Dr. Rodi Garcia, CHED 9 Director, CHED Supervisors, school administrators, deans, and faculty members of the different programs present this afternoon. Maayong hapon, good afternoon, buenas tardes, con ustedes todo. I know that at this time you are already very tired of listening, particularly the participants who attended the webinar of the teacher education group who had their meeting this morning at 9 o'clock up to 12. Then continue na po ni. Pero dili ni na ako sala ha, kay what I am doing now is not my choice, not even my decision. This is a mandate from CHED. In the spirit of Bayanihan, we learn as one. So please stretch a little more your patience. Thank you. For the information of everyone, I am not going to give lectures anymore, just like what the previous speaker did, because the instruction given to me is just to share the full-blown, we call this course package rather than module that we have prepared. So before I will start sharing with you the course packet that we have prepared, allow me first to give you a very quick recall of my sharing during our first Zoom conference for the Council of Deans for Teacher Education last May 12, 2020. In that meeting, I shared that as early as April, we already made our decision to go for a blended teaching learning modality as our response to the COVID-19 challenges, specifically in the area of instruction, which according to the chairperson has to be flexible. This decision was made due to the internet connectivity problem, not only in our school campus, but in the entire municipality of Liloy. Our connection here is really very low. So our blended modality is a combination of once a week face-to-face learning and the rest of the week for home learning, where our students will be aided by the course packets. In addition, I also shared that to decongest the course loads of our students, we decided to divide the 9 courses for the first semester into 2 clusters with 4 and 5 subjects per cluster, so that cluster A subjects or courses will be met from week 1 to week 9, and the cluster B subjects or courses from week 10 to week 18. This is done for the following reasons. First, to lessen the bulk of course tasks or output to be done by the students at home, to allow our teachers and our students to adjust to this new modality, and to provide ample time for our facilitators, course facilitators, or teachers to do evaluation and monitoring on the progress of the students, and to provide opportunities for students to experience success at the early stage of the semester after they are done or they have completed the cluster A subjects or courses. So given this kind of arrangement, the courses for each cluster are to be met for 6 hours a week instead of just 3 hours, since double time na siya ngayon. So let me now proceed to the presentation of our course packets. At the outset, again, I will make it clear that the sample course packet that I am about to share is not an ideal course packet if we base this on the lectures given to us earlier. I will not even claim that this is very well written, because obviously it needs a lot of improvements. Rather, this is our immediate response to the urgent need to prepare something that we can give to our students when classes start on August 24, 2020. So our course packet is tailored to respond to our local needs, considering the capacity of our teachers and our students. So maybe as time passes, we can keep improving our course packet. So how were our course packets prepared? Our course packets are prepared by our teachers themselves, since they have taught the courses or the subjects for quite some time, and they will still be the ones who will teach these courses in school year 2020-2021. Of course, at the start, this was quite difficult for them, but with our guidance, Dr. Bong and myself, eventually the task became should I say, a little bit easier. We started by revisiting first our curriculum for each program, then the syllabus for each course and the course outline. Since the CHED chairperson himself made it clear during his speech in one of the IATF meetings that in CHED, the content and the output or outcome of learning will not change. It's only the approach or strategy in delivering the content that will change. So we did not see the need to change entirely our syllabi. Instead, we spent more time reviewing the content, the strategies, and the corresponding assessments to determine which among them had to be modified in order for these to fit in the blended teaching learning modality that we have chosen. So in short, the preparation of the course packets was guided mainly by the course outline, so that we made sure first that the course outline really and clearly outlined the weekly topics or lessons covered by the course and the corresponding assessments or output that students have to accomplish after each topic or lesson. So what are the contents of the course packet? May I ask Sir Paul to share his screen now? Siguro ako stop na akong video. Thank you, Sir Arvi. So the course packet, kaning sample na akong i-show, contains the following. The general cover page, and this cover is common to all packets. This cover signals the users of the packet that this is a property of Ave Maria College. Then this is followed by, next slide, by the specific course packet cover, which is designed by the course facilitator himself to express his own creativity. Then, this is followed by the preface or foreword, which is then the personal message of the course facilitator to the students who will be using the packet. Then, of course, we also have the table of contents, and we also included in our course packet the course outline. We did not include anymore the course syllabus because the students don't need it anymore. The course outline, we decided to include the course outlines because this serves as the summary of all the weekly lessons and the corresponding expected output of the students. Okay, so this is now our course outline. Very quickly, it contains the following: the course facilitator, the course code and title, the course prerequisite if there is, and if there's none, then none, the course description, the course objectives, and the number of course hours. And we also emphasize that this is our flexible learning, a combination of face-to-face once a week and home learning aided by course packets. So the three columns there contain the following. Column 1, the week. Then column 2 will be the teachers' activities, mainly the input or the lessons that the teachers are supposed to deliver if these are given inside the classrooms, and then read or watch or listen to our students at home. The third column contains the expected output of the students, or these are now the flexible students learning activities. So for week 1, for example, in that course outline, week 1 supposedly is our first day of classes, and this is also supposedly the face-to-face learning, where our students will be present in the rooms with 50% capacity. So a class of 40 students before will now only become a class of 20 students. And okay, so in the first day of week 1, the teacher is expected to do this, like discuss the course outline, the requirements, the output, and the classroom protocols. They go through very quickly the outline of the topics or the lessons for the week, and then distribute the course packet, so that the students, on the other hand, are expected to get oriented on the course requirements and classroom protocols, and receive course packets. Below are the specific lessons for week 1. And then on the third column, under the students' activities or output, are the activities that the students are supposed to be doing at home. So that after the face-to-face learning, let's say for first year on Mondays, the rest of the week will be spent at home. So all the activities will be done by the students at home. So bilin lang na ako i-detail ng mga activities so that we can move to the next part of lower. So since, as what I have said earlier, we divided the 9 courses for the first semester into 2. Our midterm, our midterm exams will be on the 4th week. And then the final exams will be on the 8th week. So that the 9th week is reserved for tying of loose ends, maybe for those who have not completed all the requirements from week 1 to week 8, then this is the chance to complete all the requirements. Sige daw. Hindi mo ko makasulti. Then the course outline also specifies the major output that the students will have to submit at the end of the term. It also includes the grading system, so that right away the students will be able to have a glimpse of how will they be rated, and also the protocols to follow during the face-to-face learning. So if you can read, I think the fonts are small. Number 1 there is wear face mask all the time, observe physical distancing, and so on. Then the final part of the course outline is the list of references. So let me now move to the full-blown weekly lessons. Okay. The first week, again, there is a letter from the teacher or the course facilitator welcoming the students to the first semester of school year 2020-21. So they are there, and then at the end of this is the instruction on how or what are the students supposed to do during their home learning. So to my students, as if you can read, you are now about to start the first lesson for week 1. So read the learning materials below, then answer the comprehension check questions that follow and do activity number 1. So this is now the learning materials that we have chosen to be the source of learning from our students. Done. Okay, so the learning materials were taken or lifted from textbooks, downloaded from the internet, and these are properly acknowledged in the references. So at the end of each weekly lesson, there is a summary or the gist, the main gist of the lessons or the learning materials, and we entitled it "Keep in Mind." Then after that, there is depending on the teacher, because some teachers prepared only 1, some prepared 2, some prepared 3. So in this case, Sir Paul prepared 2 comprehension check questions. These questions are intended to determine, obviously, the understanding of the students after they have read or they have watched kung video man, the learning materials that the course facilitator has provided. Then to validate your answer, maybe after answering, the students are assured that they can check or validate their answers by simply texting or calling the course facilitator. Then, these are the major weekly activities that the students are expected to do. So in this case, the sample that I'm presenting, the teacher provided 2 activity sheets. So activity number 1, and then activity number 2. Duha ba na? Then, again, another instruction. We purposely place the instruction in a yellow box so that the students can right away notice this. So that instruction is continue the second lesson for week 1. Read and watch the learning materials below, then answer the comprehension check questions that follow, and do activity numbers 2 and 3. So again, these learning materials are taken from reference books, from the internet, and these are properly acknowledged in the list of references. In this case, Sir Paul attached a video on Matter, and then it is very easy because this is already downloaded. Kasi as what I have mentioned earlier, we go for offline teaching learning modality kasi because of the internet connectivity problem in our municipality. So in this case, Sir Paul already downloaded the videos, and then the students will just simply click, and right there and then they can now view the materials downloaded by the course facilitator. Example na siya. Sige na, close na lang. There's also another PowerPoint presentation, 2 PowerPoint presentations. Then, sige, never mind. Continuation, we call this handouts because these are not printed. Hindi ka na to, napa-input. Additional learning materials. One slide above. So each week is properly ended with a reminder on the weekly output that students are expected to submit to the course facilitator during their face-to-face session the following week. Like for instance, in the case of week 1, the reminder is to make sure that their activities number 1, 2, and 3 are kept in their portfolio, and they are to submit these to the course facilitator during their face-to-face session for week 2. So that's the end of week 2. Now let's week 1 rather. Then let's proceed to week 2. I-single page lang na para ma-dako-dako. I-single page para madako. Then there is again another instruction inside the yellow box telling the students the following. You are now on the second week of this course. Before you start working on the lessons for this week, make sure that you have submitted to your course facilitator the requirements for week 1. For this week, you will learn lesson 3. Read and watch the learning materials below, then answer the comprehension check questions and do activity number 4 and 3D model number 1. So that the learning materials are there. Then I've higher gamay. Upper. Higher. One more page up. This is not itong link. One more. So again, at the end of the lesson, there is the summary, which we call keep in mind, and then the comprehension check questions. And again, the students are instructed to text or call or email the teacher to find out if their responses to the comprehension check questions are correct or not. Then they will now proceed to their activity number 4 and the rest of the course output for the week. In this case, the students are asked rather to prepare a 3D model of of the cell, both animal and plant cell. Okay, down. After having done with these 3D models, the students are supposed to continue with lesson 3. So again, the instruction is continue lesson 3, read and watch the learning materials below, then answer the comprehension check questions, and do activity number 5 and 3D model number 2. Again. sorry, I transferred to another unit because my previous unit was rather delayed, no? So again, for at the end of the lessons for week 2, you can see there the comprehension, the keep in mind, and the comprehension check questions. Then the students will now proceed to working on activity number 5. Then to the next activity, which output, which is the 3D model number 2, and that's it. So that the week again will end with a reminder to the students to make sure that they have in their portfolio activities number 4 and 5 and 3D models 1 and 2. And then this will be submitted to the course facilitator during the face-to-face session on week 3. So I think I was given the permission that I will be sharing only week 1 and week 2 because the rest of the weeks will be basically the same as with week 1 and week 2 presentations. So I think I am done with my sharing, and I was able to take a look at the chat box and there are inquiries. So I wonder if I am supposed to answer them now or later. I don't know.
Dr. Arnal, we will have the open forum later on after the third speaker.
Okay, so that's it. So for those who have questions for me, kindly just reserve your questions later. Thank you, and a pleasant again afternoon to each and everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Arnal and Mr. Valles, for enlightening the HEIs in Region 9 by showing a concrete example of the learning packets that HEIs must produce in preparation for the coming school year 2020-2021. We shall now proceed with our third speaker for this webinar, who will speak about on the how-tos of the document submission using a learning management system that was created by the office to facilitate easy submission and retrieving of documents. Help me in welcoming an education supervisor 2 and planning officer of the CHED Row 9, Engineer Joseph Luz Santa Teresa.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Dr. Sham, for facilitating and hosting this afternoon's event. So it is my great honor to actually present what has come to reality, the idea of Dr. Roddy Garcia. So this is actually his initiative in creating this CHED online document submission and flexible assessment system. So the objectives of this system is actually to be able to do the following. First is to have a paperless transaction. So what the idea here is that we won't be submitting any more hard copies. And then another is that with this system, HEIs as well as CHED 9 can access the system anytime, anywhere. So that means everyone in higher education can submit or download documents anytime, anywhere, as long as they are connected with the internet. And then another objective is to provide real-time feedback regarding submissions of HEI. So that means we would be able to right away give you feedback on your submission if there are needs for revisions or any comments and suggestions from our part. And also, the system will also provide the chat box, which will enable the HEI to communicate directly with the supervisors or any CHED personnel for that matter. So it depends which office they will be submitting to. So it could be the records office, or it could be for documents for the supervisors, or for Unifast, or request for serial numbers for NSTP. So all document submission for the regional office can be submitted through this system. And another is, this is our response to the COVID-19 pandemic. So this means with this system, it will enable us less physical contact, because as we know, as of the moment, with the current situation, we must be conscious of course, of our health, and that is also to protect us from being exposed. So this system would help us, enable us to submit documents online. So the system actually has three parts. So it's actually the admin side, which is the one who maintains the system, and of course there is the HEI side, and of course the CHED regional office side. So for the HEI side, we will be showing to you the system on how you'd be able to log in and operate within the system. So may I request our personnel, Mr. Renan, who will assist me. Mr. Renan is part of our programming team here at the Commission on Higher Education, Region 9. Of course, together with Jake and Mr. C here at the MIS and the Director's Office. So let's just wait while the system loads on your screen. So this was developed months before, and the system is currently also still being polished. So hopefully pretty soon we would be able to release a memorandum or an information to everyone on how to adopt the system or on how to be able to use the system for their advantage. And another is this system has already been presented to the CHED central office, and we received positive feedback, of course. This system will be an option for document submission. So it is not entirely the only way to submit documents. Especially we have areas that have no internet connection or they have difficulties in internet connection. So of course, they are also given other options. But for those who would be able or would like to have the ease of submitting documents online, so this is a very good platform that the regional office has devised. So we'll just wait for the system. Okay, I think we have, you can see the system on the screen. So what you're looking at is actually the login screen, wherein the first time that you will be logging into the system. So this is the HEI side. So when you are using the system, this is what the interface will look like when you start using it. So for example, we will start logging in by using the unique identifier of the school, institutional identifier. So this is just what we're doing here, what we're showing you is just an example. So this is not the actual school or the actual documents that they are submitting, but the process or the procedure is somewhat like this. So when you logged into the system, and then when the interface or what will be welcoming you is this screen. So on your upper left corner, you'd be able to see the welcome message, which will welcome so that you know if you have logged in correctly at your school, and then you'll have your notification also, and then your upload file menu wherein you can upload the files. So
Excuse me. Uy, ayaw. Syllabus, upload file, syllabus.
laptop got disconnected. So I hope everyone can hear me now. So for example, if you will be submitting the syllabus, so you will pick on the type of documents that you will be uploading, which is the syllabus, and then you would select what type of program you are going to upload the syllabus to. For example, if you're uploading a syllabus for teacher education or for allied health programs, so you choose what type of program. For example, we have nursing. So let's choose nursing, and then after which you'll choose what file.
Ay, na si Marimar na. Doon na niya. Paalaw niya kabukod. Pa-stress. Si Marimar sa pelikod. Sana?
Perito.
Oh, padali na.
Pakulo rin mga estudyante.
Ano man daw?
Kita siya din mo.
Hello? Can you hear me now? Okay. So may I request everyone to please mute their microphone because there are certain things that are not supposed to be heard, but we can hear you. Okay. So please mute your microphone, ma'am. Okay. So you can see the file right there, what you have uploaded. And of course, we have also the previous files that we have uploaded. So all of the files that you will be uploading into the system will be shown here. Now you have either the option to download the file again to check if you have uploaded the correct file. And then you may also have the option to delete the file if you wish to delete the file later on if you have uploaded the wrong file and you wish to upload another file. So you also have the chat box wherein you could actually chat with the regional office. But before you do that, you have to log into a Messenger account to be able to interact using this chat box. So this is now what I'm showing you is the interface of the HEI. So on the part of the commission, on the regional office, we have the option also to give feedback once we have received your documents into our office. So let's see, for example, if an education supervisor has logged into the system. So let's try using my account. It's okay. Once I've logged into my account, I could actually see all the submission of all HEIs in my account. So I can see what school have submitted, at what program, what document type. So for example, if I would like to look at a sample of the document, for example, this is the letter to the student. So I can right away see, so this is an example of an upload. I can right away see what the document is. And the document is converted from a Word file into a PDF or protected file. So I can either rotate that, download, or print the documents. And from here, I could give right away feedback if I need to. For example, if I would ask the HEI to please revise your letter. This is just an example. So we don't actually do this, but we're just showing an example. So when we send the feedback, once we click send the feedback, it would right away be sent to the institution. So if we logged out of my account and then we'd logged in back into the institution's account, for example, so if an institution has logged in, you can see the notification bar that there is already a notification that you have received. So if there are lots of notification, the numbers would increment and you'd be able to see what feedback was sent. So if you clicked on that, you can see what the feedback was, what the supervisor has said, or what the regional office has commented on the documents that you have submitted. So from there, you may be able to either revise the letter or do something with the file and then re-upload again the file so that the regional office will be able to check on what you have uploaded. So with this system, you'd be able to access this system anytime, anywhere, as long as you have the internet connection. And with this facility, it would hasten the transaction of document submission from your HEI to our office, same with our office to your HEI. Now, this system is just on its preliminary phase, so hopefully we will be improving more on the features of this system, and hopefully this system will be adopted later on in response to what is happening right now in our environment, especially with the COVID-19 pandemic. So I hope that if you have any questions regarding this system or any suggestions or recommendations, we are really happy to hear from you so that we could improve this system. And of course, this system would actually be very useful for both of us, for the higher education institution and of course for the regional office 9. So with that, I'd like to turn you back to Sir Sham, and then maybe we could go back to our open forum.
Okay, so the three speakers have spoken and have shared their insights on the respective topics. We are now opening the virtual floor for any questions. We already have consolidated questions here coming from the Facebook Live, YouTube, and also on the chat room that we have in our Zoom. The first question is coming from Dr. Byron Gosil of Wingsu SU. How are the downloaded multimedia materials distributed to the students when the medium is offline? I think this question is directed to Dr. Era Aranal. Dr. Era, again, the question is, how are the downloaded multimedia materials distributed to the students when the medium is offline?
Okay, sorry, I forgot to mention this in my sharing earlier, which is on the packaging of our course packets. There are two ways of packaging our course packets. One, for those who have the gadgets, which means those who have either laptops, computers, or Android cell phones, the course packet will be saved in the USB, which we will distribute to our students on the first day of the face-to-face learning. And for those who do not have the gadgets, we will be packaging the course packets back through print copies. So hardbound copies. And as what you have noticed earlier during my presentation, there are learning materials that are either PowerPoint presentations or video clips or even movies in some of our course packets. So the problem there is, how are they going to open these materials? So we have already consulted this with Sir Dr. Garcia, and he even suggested na the school, we can provide computer units to our students who do not have the gadgets, where they can open the downloaded videos or movies. Parang we will be creating some kind of an internet cafe in our school, so that students who really do not have the gadget can come to school anytime after their face-to-face learning, and then they can be given, let's say, 1 to 2 hours just to open those materials that they could not find in the printed course packets. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Dr. Air Aranal. We also have another question coming from YouTube, from Jovito Anito. He says, thank you for sharing your experience in developing a course learning packet together with a sample. To CHED 9, are we showing this as an exemplar? Are we recommending this example to other HEIs? I think this will be answered by our OIC Director, Dr. Roddy P. Garcia.
Sorry, sir, nakamute kanina.
Okay, as provided by our speaker, Dr. Era Aranal, this is just a recommendation or a sample that the institution may actually consider for the design of their own modules. So we do observe academic freedom, but we believe that when we assessed and evaluated the sample module presented to us by Dr. Aranal, it is actually the ideal design and content-based module that we are looking at.
Sir, may I add?
Yes.
May I add, Sir Doc Rodi?
Yes, yes, you may. Yes, you may, ma'am. You may.
I think I wonder if I mentioned it before I started with my presentation that this is just a sharing of what we have done so that people will just, other HEIs will just be able to get parang